From rock bottom to radical recovery, today's guest is living proof that even in the darkest corners, hope is possible. Paris Maistre is a recovered meth addict, now an advocate and mental health support worker for those battling with addictions. But her story goes far beyond that. In this episode, Paris pulls back the curtain on the real underbelly, not just of addiction, but of a world that comes with it. Crime, chaos, survival, shame, and silence. We talk about the truth behind meth that most people don't realise, and the gritty reality that rarely makes the headlines. It's confronting, it's deeply human, it's epically inspiring, and full of hope. Please welcome to the show, Paris Maistre. I am joined by Paris, and I was a guest on Paris's interview last year, Shit's Fucked. And I honestly walked away thinking to myself, that is truly the story of someone who's actually inspirational. And afterwards, I reached out to you, Paris, and I was like, can you please come on my podcast? Because I want to know your story. I want to know everything about you. I talk to so many people who have an overcoming story, a recreation story, a rock bottom to new reality story, but I've never met someone who I believe has such a huge story to share. So thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. I'm so excited for this chat.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's an honor. And I absolutely loved having you on my potty, by the way. It was such a great conversation. It was so
Yeah.
good. So no, I'm so honored to be here.
Thank you. So, we're going to talk a lot about your story of addiction, overcoming addiction, recovery, what you've then turned into such a beautiful, heart led, passionate, purpose driven business. Your story and your pain, I think, is one of those typical cliche stories of like, you've turned your pain into purpose and now you're impacting and doing the whole ripple effect thing. So we'll talk
Yeah.
about that, but I suppose I want to kind of go back before that because obviously addiction is a big part of your story today, but I
Mm.
want to know about before that became part of your story, who was Paris?
That's a great question. And honestly, one that I will struggle to answer because I was very lost from a very young age. I grew up in a household that was very tumultuous. I didn't say that right, but we know what
Tumultuous,
I meant.
yep.
Yeah, that's the one. And it was just, yeah, there wasn't a good balance at home. I was constantly on eggshells. And look, I don't want to say that, my parents are bad people or anything like that. Everything that they did back then was to the best of their ability with the knowledge that they had at the time. And, they were in tough positions. They were financially strained. There was a lot, yeah, particularly a lot of money problems. So both of my parents were working really hard. They were barely at home, which kind of resulted in me having to be looked after by a lot of different relatives. And so from a young age, being looked after different relatives, there was one relative in particular who she wasn't well. That's the nicest thing I can say.
Mm.
But she wasn't well, wasn't a well person. And she's passed on now, so RIP. But she just, she didn't like me. She hated me, like from a very young age, because she hated my mum and I looked like my mum. So she was really odd, a real odd person. And so every time that I was staying with her, she was very cruel to me. And this was coming from a really, really young age. So in those very formative years, I was starting to second guess myself from like 4 or 5 years old. I was
Mm.
wondering, am I good enough? Like why am I being treated like this? And mind you, like I have other siblings who weren't being treated that way. So I felt really
Oh.
targeted and I was being isolated off into bedrooms like by myself for hours while my other siblings would be off playing and doing things. And I remember there was a few times like I'd grab her brush to brush my hair and she would just snatch it out of my hand and be like, don't you dare touch my things, and would wash it in front of me like
Oh.
I'm this diseased like thing. And I remember just always feeling like, what have I done wrong? Like I'm obviously a bad person. And it just started to really take over my core beliefs at that time at such a young age. I was questioning myself at an age I shouldn't have been. And so my parents didn't really know a lot of that stuff was going on. But my parents had their own stuff going on. I mean, my mum was dealing with cervical cancer as well. And my dad, he was away a lot of the time truck driving, but he was also not an easy person to be around. He had a lot of anger problems. So he was difficult, really, really difficult and hard to be around. So it was like all this stuff was going on when I was with my relatives. And then I'd come home and it was like still not a safe space for me. I still didn't feel like I could go in there and be like, hey, like just talk openly with my parents about anything because I was always scared of like repercussions. I was like, just walking a real fine line at home. So I never had a safe space. So
Mm,
I guess like growing up, I didn't have a strong self identity because I was constantly confused about who I was and what I'm worth and my value. And I was constantly questioning things. So, yeah, to answer your question in a really
mm,
long winded way, I really didn't know. I didn't know. And so, for me in primary school, like I was acting out a lot. I was doing real crazy things. Like,
mm.
honestly, Brie, I was doing the strangest things. I remember in kindy, like I used to love like just doing really troublesome things that would get me attention, I guess. Maybe I was craving it, I don't know. But in kindy, I used to tell people, you know how like there's the siren for recess?
Yeah.
There used to be like a tambourine, and we all would have like a roster, and when we take turns to shake the tambourine to signal us coming inside, recess is done. I thought it would be hilarious to tell one of the boys that, you know, oh, Mrs. Orr told me that it's your turn to shake the tambourine. We've been outside for 5 minutes, mind you.
Yeah.
Barely got through recess. And then had all the kids running in. I'm giggling away and always getting in trouble for things like that. In primary
Mm,
school, I was cutting up kids' shirts. I was kicking people. I was
yeah.
doing really, really strange things. So yeah, I was a very lost kid, a really lost kid, very confused kid, and I was having a lot of outbursts, I was acting very strange and doing things to other people that were quite like mean, even
Mm,
though me in my heart, like I wasn't a mean person. I still had a
mhm,
very strong conscience and I knew if I hurt someone, I would still get upset about it. I would be
mm.
physically ill. But yeah, just a very confused child who ended up picking up alcohol and drugs at 13, really young.
Wow. That again, I'm not gonna rant, but this makes me so I think I spoke to you on the podcast, as someone who was a teacher and was never trained in trauma responses, things seeing kids acting out, it makes me so mad and sad for these poor kids that, these signs should have been seen. At least if it weren't from your family who had their own things going on. I just feel like this is why everyone, every parent and every teacher needs to understand the signs to look out for when these are potentially cries for help. But I digress. So you got to alcohol and drugs at 12, 13. That was when you sort of started to move into that space. What
Mm.
was what was the context of when you first started to dabble into it? Had you fallen into the wrong crowd? Was it like what did life look like right when you started to find alcohol and drugs? And when did it start to progress into more hectic things?
So at around, I think I was either 11 or 12, things were still really bad with that said relative that we talked about before. And, she'd be over at our house a lot of the time, and I'd come in and she'd just be like, you're going to be the reason your parents died. I'd be like, hello to you too. Like, get out of
Whoa.
here. Why are you even here? Honestly, over your shit. But
Yeah.
I was still dealing with her. So that bullying went on for like a really long time. And then I started getting like bullied in primary school as well. I was getting like teased a lot in like year 6 and year 7, mainly because I was really gullible, still am. And so I guess like around that point of time, towards the end of primary school, I also lost my granddad, who died in a very horrific way. It was a terrible accident that he had, where he was loading up this truck and was pulling sea crates onto the back of this big truck, and the sea crates are pulled up with these really thick metal chains. And he got distracted talking to an apprentice, well, he was trying to train him and things like that. And the sea crate actually got stuck on the ramp and it wasn't coming up, but the chain was still winding. And
Oh,
so the chain snapped and it just flung back and smacked him straight in the face. So he was dead on the spot, like he died straight away. And it was really hard for me because I ended up becoming quite close to my granddad. And so I
mm,
actually felt like everything that I was doing up to that point, like when I was trying to do really well at school and things like that, I was never doing it for my parents because they weren't always around. I didn't have, I guess, the same respect for my parents at that age as I did for my granddad. I always wanted
oh,
to do something for him. So when he died, that had a big impact on me. And then I guess like just moving into it was probably year seven. I probably was 12, so just about to go into high school. It was it was actually my dad who gave me my first drink, and it was a port, like so you know you got like wine port, super
yeah,
sweet. You know
yeah,
me being a 12-year-old, I'm like, oh, this is
yeah,
tasty.
yeah,
And so I immediately, when I had that, I was like, wow, like I feel really like warm and fuzzy
mm,
and like this is like a giant hug. Like this is
mm,
nice. Like this is the best I've felt in a long time. I honestly
yeah,
couldn't even think like when I was feeling peace, content, like pure happiness. Like up until that point, it was just I was all over the shop emotionally.
mm,
And so to have that suddenly calm me and put me into that space of just happiness, I was like, wow, like
mm,
you are my new best friend.
yeah,
Hello. So it was literally like straight after that, I started sneaking into my parents' alcohol addiction, alcohol collection. And I just started doing the old filling it up with water, a couple of tea bags to change the color, leave a
yeah,
little bit in there to try and keep the scent. But yeah,
yeah,
started working my way through that at 13. And I grew up with like mates at school who weren't bad influences, but we were all like
yeah,
drinkers. I definitely drank more than anyone out of
yeah,
my group. And I was the first to like get into drugs and things like that as well. So that the way that drugs came into it, it first started off with weed. We had some mates that, you know, would smoke weed and I guess wanted to try it. Wasn't too much like looking for, I guess I wasn't actively seeking it. That's probably the best
yeah.
way to put it. But it was just around, it was there. And but meth I was introduced to at 14. And that
Wow.
was by a friend who again, she was as young as me, didn't even understand really what she was having, but was
Mm,
being had been introduced to it by an older brother. So, you know,
wow.
things like that started happening. I was hanging out with her a lot more, and she came from a family who had a lot of their own addiction issues. So I was pretty much gifted alcohol like when I would go there, like 13, 14. Obviously, was doing meth with her here and there. But meth didn't become problematic for me then. I was actually quite scared of meth at that point because it would keep me up for days. And I don't know, that would really freak me out as a 14
Mm,
year old. And just imagining the havoc that did on my body at that point in time, I would feel like my heart was just pounding out of my chest. Like I was too young. I was too young and
yeah,
underdeveloped for that kind of drug.
yeah.
And so, you know, just continued drinking on. Drinking was becoming a daily thing, like even through high school. I remember going to church with my friends and I would be drinking, like I would just have like port in a little flask. And I thought it was fine. Like I actually didn't think anyone realized what was going on, but apparently I stank of port.
Oh,
Didn't even know.
and this is like
But
year
yeah,
eight, year nine sort of time.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So yeah, just continuing on there, going through the alcohol collection, getting drinks from my friends, like parents who I was hanging out with. And yeah, and I just had a lot of stuff happen in high school that then made things spiral out worse. So yeah, that was kind of like where I was at then.
And can you remember you said that you didn't really like meth when you were scared of it when you first tried it? Do you remember the first time you tried it and what happened, how you felt? Like, can you explain that?
Yeah, it was horrific. I remember the way that it was given to me. She was just like, "Oh, it's like weed. You smoke it," and I was like, "Oh yeah, like I've smoked weed. That's easy, done.
Yeah.
So I smoked it, and I just remember feeling the most intense rush through my body, and I just felt like I was moving a million miles a minute, and I couldn't slow down. And I was awake, I think, for 2 days. Actually, just I think I only had
Wow.
one hit, and it was 2 days that
Really?
I was awake. Yeah. And my heart, I just remember my heart beating so loud. I was just like lying on our couch, like looking up at the ceiling, and my heart is pounding out of my chest. And I was like, am I having a heart attack? I
Oh,
remember just freaking out. But
yeah.
yeah, that's what freaked me out, because my body just felt, everything was so intense, and I didn't know how to stop it. Like, it wasn't slowing down. Like, that intensity was just peaking. And then it
Whoa.
finally, I would say it probably got to about 12 hours in, and then it started to like come down, but it was still intense. Like, it wasn't like, oh, now I'm starting to relax. It was like, no, 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 like you still felt horrid. Like, it was
Wow.
terrible.
What's the
So
come
that's how it
down
felt.
like at that age when you're 14? Did you have a, you haven't slept for a few days, you're hormonal, you're 14, life's already confusing and hard when you're 14. What was that experience like coming off meth when you were that age?
To be fair, I don't actually remember having any come downs, because even though
Okay.
I was drinking excessively, I wasn't having hangovers either. So I
Yeah,
don't know if
wow.
that was like, the beauty of youth, and, not really feeling things as badly as, I do at 32 now.
Yeah.
But I don't remember ever having to come down off it. I think I just had a good sleep, and then I was like good. But, talk to me when I was 19, and I wouldn't say the same thing.
Yeah. So what sort of changed? You went from like 14, 13, 14. You've tried meth and you said, I don't like it, I'm scared of it. Later on, you have said meth became your addiction of choice, which, I think I heard you say in a podcast, sucked that that was my one of choice. But how did it change from 14, don't like it, it scares me, my heart's coming out of my chest, to moving toward meth in like using it?
Yeah. So, as I said before, high school came with a lot of its own new traumas,
Yeah.
and I ended up getting sexually assaulted by one of my, I was about to say colleagues, but we weren't colleagues, were we? My peers.
Yeah.
And that was really confusing, because for me, I didn't even actually understand that I was being assaulted for quite a long time, because I was in a relationship with this person, and I kind of thought, and they're the same age as me, and I thought, oh, this is what like adults do, like this is
Mm.
love, even though like I was being forced to do things like physically, and I would always go home crying, and I constantly felt humiliated and shame, and just felt disgusting like in my own body. But I convinced myself, and he convinced me that this is what adults do, like this is what love is, like
Mm.
welcome to adulthood, like suck it up kind of a thing. And
Yeah.
because like I didn't have a good relationship with my parents, it's not like it was something that I could talk to them about. So
Mm.
they knew something was going on, though. They did meet that guy a few times, and they were already like red flags, this guy's not okay. But I was very rebellious. I was constantly sneaking out. I was wagging school. I kept hanging out with him, and that went on for like over a year of that. And yeah, as I said at the time, I didn't realize it was abuse. So it wasn't until a bit later that that kind of started catching up to me, when I would talk to other people about it, and they would be like shocked at some of the things, and would say, Paris, like that's not love, like that's not okay, like that's really wrong, that's, you were assaulted. And so that was a whole thing in itself. But the real trauma that ended up happening to me, which unfortunately I won't be able to actually go into, because it does involve a direct family member, and I'm
Mm.
in the process of healing that
Yeah.
relationship. But what I will say about it is there was something that happened between me and the said family member, and I was my whole world shattered pretty much when this happened, and I was 19 when this happened.
Mm.
And I didn't feel safe like in my home with my parents. I questioned my whole relationship with this person. You know, we were very close. And so I kind of was like, I don't understand like what's happened, and I don't understand how we've got here. Like I can't even look at you. Like this is, you've taken so much away from me. And so I just I fell into this space of just being very angry, starting to kind of realize what had been going on in my life beforehand, like a lot of the mistreatment that I've been getting. And again, still dealing with a tough home life. Like, you know,
Mm.
dad was still being very hard to be around. He wasn't very understanding,
Mm.
very aggressive. And I I just snapped. I totally snapped. And it got to a point where I was like, I actually don't think I want to go on. So I started becoming really suicidal around
Mm.
that age. And so, funnily enough, though, at that point of time, I happened to reconnect with this girl that I used to play hockey with like a long time ago when I was like 13. And I had no idea that she was a meth user. No idea. I mean, the signs were there now that I looking back on it, but at the time I was really naive. And so
Yeah.
I remember I was with her the day that this incident happens, and I literally just I fell into a heap, and I can't deal with this, but I know something that will make you feel better. And that was when she pulled it out, and I was like, oh, like I recognize that. I've had that before, but I was in such a distraught and distressed state. I was like, I don't care though. I felt so reckless. I was like, I don't give a fuck. I was like, just give it to me. Like, I'll have it. If it takes this pain away, even for a second, like, I cannot deal with what I'm feeling with. And that was pretty much the moment that things really spiraled out of control for me.
Wow. And did you get that relief that you were looking for at the second time that it was instant?
Yeah. Yeah. It was a totally different experience to the first time that I had it. And I put that to my body being a bit more developed. But yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I was like, wow, I feel nothing. Like I'm not feeling in agonizing pain anymore. Like I feel like good. Like I'm ready to go. Like let's go party. Like we were
Yeah.
going out and like drinking, and like, you know, drinking was also still quite excessive alongside with meth. They were definitely both my Achilles heels. But yeah, it just got so out of control because I got addicted to escaping and for numbing that pain.
So when it's good, I've always been so curious. Can you describe to me that feeling for people who just cannot understand, probably will not understand? When it's good, how does that feel in your body? Like, yes, you want to dance, you want to go clubbing. Is it like love drug, like MDMA? What sort of, how does that feel in that place?
It's a really hard one to describe because I've done a lot of drugs and there's none that
Yeah.
make you feel like that.
Yeah.
Because you got to imagine as well, methamphetamines, what it does to the body is it really floods your dopamine receptors, like
Yeah.
floods them instantly. And so you can imagine that you're literally just being hit with all this dopamine, and
Oof.
you just feel like euphoric in a way.
Yeah.
And you're just like, wow. So I guess like yeah, I couldn't even compare it to MDMA. Like I feel like that's a totally different feeling to it. But it's you just feel on top of the world, like nothing could phase you. Another reason I really loved it is because when I was drinking really heavily, it would actually like steady me out. So if I started getting
Yeah.
really drunk, I would have that too, and that would steady me so I could still be really charismatic, and then like just be full of good like energy and like party and continue
Mm,
on. So I'd be going all night long, like
yeah.
you couldn't stop me. But that feeling doesn't stay. So the more that you use and become like a frequent user, it's not that same reaction anymore. And that's
Oh,
what people chase.
yeah. And I guess the dopamine, yeah, you're always looking for the next high and it's harder and harder to get it. So
Yeah.
was that your experience? It was amazing to start and over how long, how many years did it go for? And what was that journey like from like, yes, this is amazing, this is the best feeling ever to, oh shit, now I realize maybe this is a problem. How long was that journey and how did you sort of transition?
So that was about 10 years. So on and off for
Wow.
10 years. Yeah. So it was from 19 till about 30 was when I last had it. So 2 years
Wow.
ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, not being sober from it for that long. It's literally only
Yeah.
been 2 years, and it's been a part of my life for a really long time. But
Yeah.
it's yeah, it started off, as I said, like going good. I felt on top of the world. I wasn't, all my demons were being kept at bay, and I loved that because the second that I stopped, I was in the worst space. Like it was always like life and death pretty much for me. I was always in such a suicidal state when I stopped. And so
Wow.
I just continued on, kept drinking, continued on. And that journey in itself was really hard. Like I did a lot of dumb shit. I hurt a lot of people. We were talking earlier about how you listened to my episode with my sister, and she got to share her side of the story and what
Mm,
she experienced, which was really heartbreaking to hear. I mean, you're very much like in your own little hole. Like you're not really looking at how that's impacting other people. Because for me, in the mindset that I was in, I was like, I'm doing this to survive. Like if I don't do this, like I'll die. Like I will die if I don't continue on like this. This is what's keeping me alive. And so for the longest time, like I was just like a shell of a person really, and I wasn't present. I was constantly, just doing shit things to friends. Like the amount of times that people would be waiting for me for things and I wouldn't show up till like an hour or two later, or I'd go out with people and then I would disappear halfway through the night because I want to go pick up, like, and I would just
yeah.
tell the most horrendous stories that when I look back I'm like, there's no way they would have thought that that was true. Like the lies
Yeah.
and lies and lies. And so people also didn't trust me because I was very obviously lying about a lot of things, and that, yeah, really impacted a lot of my relationships. And then I decided to move to Melbourne for 4 years, which I thought was, going to help me kind of get out of this place because I was starting to get, yeah, even with doing all the drugs and alcohol and whatnot, things weren't feeling as good after some
Mm.
time. And the come downs were starting to get pretty horrible. And, as soon as you start to come off meth, because like your dopamine receptors are constantly flooded like that, your body loses the ability to produce it itself.
Oh,
So you can imagine when you stop using, you've got zero, like zero serotonin, zero dopamine. There's nada.
oh,
So
that's depressing.
you're instantly in a suicidal state. And
Yeah.
that's why a lot of people end up using again, because they're actually scared they're going to like do something to themselves because
Yeah.
you're in that place. It's not just I'm feeling down, it's like I actually want to die. Like that's how bad it
Fuck.
is. And so then, I was constantly again trying to chase that high. I'm using more, and then when I moved to Melbourne, I was just so lost. Like I was so, so lost. I'd been lost like such a long time, and the drugs and alcohol were not making it any better. My mindset was fucked. And I just, and more trauma comes along with using this type of drug, right? Like I was
Yeah.
very much exposed to the underworld there. Like, being in Australia where we have gun control and still seeing guns, like, it was full on. And
Fuck.
it was scary. Like it was actually really
Yeah.
scary. There was a few times that I thought I was going to get seriously hurt. Actually, a few times that has happened, and thankfully I didn't. But been put in a lot of positions where that could have happened, and
Was this
witnessing
in
other people get hurt.
pursuit? Sorry, was that like in pursuit, these dangerous situations where drugs show up? Was that sort of finding yourself in extreme situations to get the next hit or just wrong place, wrong time? Like, how did that come about?
It was always just like to get the next hit. So the people that you start to circle yourself around who are doing those types of things, like not to say that they're bad people. I mean, they're all lost in their own way, as I was,
Hmm.
but they were doing like pretty horrific things, and I would often become like, and I guess because I was a girl, like they would be attracted to me. Like a lot of the time I didn't even pay for it, which, like,
Wow.
that was the probably only benefit of it. But they would often like have me around their house like all the time. I'd be hanging out with dealers. And when you're hanging out with dealers, people are coming and going to pick up stuff.
Mm.
And so yeah, there was a few situations where someone's tried to like rob someone, like, trying to break into that dealer's place and take shit. And then, they've been, you know, there's been very violent acts that have happened, and I've had to like get out of there, and things like that. Or also being in positions where people have gone into drug induced psychosis and they've started getting really out of control and becoming violent as well, and so having to escape from those situations too. So yeah, it's more who I was hanging around, and particularly the dealers that I was spending time with.
Holy moly. It's like trauma attracts more trauma. And then to try to come off it, you're depressed. So it's really a race to the bottom, which is why I just find like I truly mean it when I say it's not so often that I walk away from someone and go, like, that's the actual definition of inspiration. And looking at you now and watching what you do and, being on your podcast, and I've watched you on Instagram, I think to come out of that when you've got no dopamine, no serotonin, you're suicidal, it's the most addictive drug in the world. You're working against your brain chemistry, your like, everything, your traumas. It's just so incredible that you actually were able to, and so many people don't. So many people never get out of it. And I suppose my context is my dad's worked in the justice system for 20 years. He's a prison officer
Yeah.
at a maximum security prison. And he's always said to me, like, once you're on meth, it's almost like he'll see them for the rest of their life. Like they're back in prison or they're using in prison. And I've always had this story that like it's so rare to come out of it. So I suppose since to me it seems like you're one of the minorities that we're so blessed that you get to do this work and spread the message and help to raise awareness about trauma and mental health and all of these things. Was there a reason, a rock bottom, a moment where you were like, I need to change, or was it like a slow process?
Yeah, I'm a slow learner. I would love to say I had like one big rock bottom moment and I was
Yeah.
like, that's it, gotta turn my life
Yeah.
around. Nah, didn't happen for me that way. I was
Yeah.
very much, it was multiple rock bottoms, multiple. And it was every time that happened though, there'd be a slight shift. So I wouldn't necessarily think, God, I gotta change my life. It was like, well, that fucking really sucked. Like, I don't really want to deal with that. And that
Yeah.
was kind of more of what I was thinking, rather
Yeah.
than actually admitting to myself that I needed to sort it out. But I was starting to think about, situations I didn't want to be in, and, wanting to move away from those types of things. And so, like, yeah, there was quite a few. But when I got to Melbourne, that was when things got real bad, because, naive me was like, if I move away, my problems will disappear and everything will be great. But no, they followed me naturally. And so I just, because I had no supervision, like I had no family there, there was no one there to really keep an eye on me.
Mm.
I went out of control, out
Yeah.
of control. Like it was scary. I got so bad. And I thought I was bad in WA. I was way worse in Victoria. And I ended up falling into escorting at this point in time. So that was
Wow.
another layer to it. So when
Ah.
I got into escorting, that was when I was around drugs constantly and around dealers constantly. And I was making all these connections with people that I should not have been connecting with. And that was a whole experience in itself. Like, I mean, I had a lot of like great times in that because I was technically like a high class escort. So I did charge a very high amount,
Yeah.
but you either get like your business clients who earn like millions and things like that who can afford to pay you those rates, or you get your dealers who can
Ah.
afford those rates. So
Wow.
yeah, so it was very much it just like put me into a really bad way. And yeah, as I said, I did enjoy some of it, but then there was of course the negatives that came with that. I mean, my
Mm.
sleep cycle was fucked. I was working like all night and staying up, and then there's the whole, giving so much of myself to people and my energy going with it. And even just like, I guess, losing, I even felt like I lost possession of my own body in a way. Like I was so
Mm.
disassociated to it. I
Mm.
didn't even know how to have romantic relationships after my escorting stint or during, because I'd always treated it like a job. Like, I'd start
Mm.
seeing someone and then I'd climb out of the window at 3 a.m. and they're like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "We're done here. Like,
Yeah.
we're done. I gotta go."
This is not how it works.
I'm like, and they're like, "We wanted to cuddle. Like, do you want to have breakfast?" I'm like, "No." Like,
Yeah,
why?
wow.
What's the point? Like, weird.
Yeah.
So I was very, yeah, started to really disassociate from myself. And then again, like the more that I'm using like methamphetamines, the more I was starting to become at risk of drug-induced psychosis. So when you start using that much and you're going days without sleeping, that's when you start to go into drug induced psychosis. And that's when you start to really hallucinate, which is really terrifying. I mean, we've all experienced
Mm,
someone out in society who's rambling on to themselves, having a good old yarn, and you're just staring there like, what the fuck is like wrong with
yeah.
that person? They're on drugs or but you don't really get it until you've
Yeah.
been there. And now when I look at people, I think, I wonder what they're seeing, because
Wow.
that's what I was experiencing. Like my reality was totally different to anyone else's. Like I would think that there was genuine physical bodies of people like I'm looking at you in front of me. It wasn't like I was tripping on acid or anything. It was clear. It looked like reality, and I was
Wow.
talking to these people, but they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't actually be there. So I'd be talking to myself for so long, hours sometimes, talking to myself, having this good old yarn with no one. And then
Wow.
I would suddenly snap out of it and think, oh, fuck, like no one was there. And then I'd be like, shit, was I just experiencing psychosis? Like, did I just hallucinate? And then that just kind of kept happening. That became a
Wow.
bit more regular. And that was when it got really scary, because you start to hallucinate things you fear a lot of the time. It's never nice things. Like you're not
Oh,
hallucinating like unicorns and rainbows
yeah.
and chocolate fountains. Like
Yeah.
that's not what you're hallucinating. It's like
Oh,
things that scare you usually. And that's why people get really like worked up if
yeah.
you see them on the street and they're like, "Ugh," like because they're seeing things
That's
that are
scared.
scary, yeah,
Oh,
or like someone's accusing them of something or trying to get them. That was very common for me. It was seeing someone that was trying to get me. That was
oh
very
shit.
common. Yeah, I remember there was one time in particular. I was in this apartment. I was with a heroin user and another meth addict, and I remember looking out the window, and we're like, I don't know, 40 floors up or something. And I'm looking out the window and I can see like a SWAT team like
Oh shit.
scaling the building. And I've immediately gone like, like, oh my God, like they're after me. They're gonna get me. And I started freaking out. And I just turned to them and I was like, guys, there's a SWAT team like scaling the building. Like, fuck, we gotta get out of here. And they all just looked at me like, bro, like you've cooked it. Like
Oh shit. So you can
the
see
heroin
like people
addict and the
jump
meth
out of
addict.
buildings.
Yes, no, absolutely. Because like I got really scared. I was like, oh fuck. And then I had to like really humble myself in that moment. I was like, Paris, you're not some big fucking honcho that they're trying to like get like some big fish that they want to fry.
Yeah.
Like, shut up.
Yeah. Wow.
Like you're doing your own thing. Like I used to, when I would deal, which was very, I wouldn't even call it dealing. I was very much the middleman for a lot of people. I would be with
Yeah.
the connections and be like, yeah, I'll sort you out. I'd grab everything and like bring it back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's where I just got a lot of my paranoia from as well, because I started
Wow.
doing stuff like that. And then yeah, I ended up just landing myself in hospital at one point. That was in 2019 in Melbourne, at St. Vincent's, and I just was so I was fucked. I was so fucked.
Wow.
I'd just been doing meth for so long. I had like, I think it was like 6 months straight. It was something really
Wow.
ridiculous. Like I didn't have any breaks, which I normally
Whoa.
would have like a couple of days or something, but I went 6 months straight and I was just cooked. Like I had to go to hospital. I was so suicidal. I had to be on suicide watch. They pretty much just had to help me through the withdrawals because I couldn't hack
Wow.
it. It was really, really intense. And my partner at the time, I feel really sad like when I think about him because I broke that man. I really
Oh.
broke that man. He wasn't someone that was involved in any of this. Like he was
Oh.
just yeah, average Joe, genuinely
Oh.
really cared about me and was a beautiful soul, and
Mm.
he had to deal with a lot, a lot, a
Oh.
lot. Yeah. So yeah, then I got out of the hospital and things were still really not good. And I decided it got to like COVID and at the start of 2020. I probably left hospital end of 2019. And I was like, fuck, I need to actually, I can't go on like this. I was so exhausted. I was miserable. I lost that partner. He ended up having to leave me, which I totally understand now. But at the
Yeah.
time, I felt super abandoned. And
Yeah.
then my best friend of 15 years also had to up and leave me, who, she was like a sister to me. And so that
Mm.
was devastating. And I, yeah, started like losing people that were really,
Yeah.
really important to me. And I just didn't want to go on, to be honest. So as a last ditch effort, I thought, fuck it, like I'll just come back to WA. Like I was about to be homeless anyway. I was couch surfing at that point of time. And I don't know if you remember, but in COVID, you know how you could take out 10K in your super?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so I did that, which
Yep.
I was the worst person
Yeah.
to get access to that. I
Mm.
blew all of it, all of it.
On
And
meth?
meth, drugs,
Yeah.
Airbnbs, like I was just, yeah,
Is
I was
meth
all over the shop.
is meth expensive?
Yes, very. It's probably
Oh,
like to have like a proper, I don't know, probably each day I was you'd the amount that I was having would probably be about like $300 worth, like each day.
wow. Okay, I
Yeah,
understand now. Okay. I thought
yeah.
it was the
So
cheaper drug, but that makes sense why it naturally progresses to like what job can I do? How can I steal things if I need to so that I don't kill myself? And I suppose that what's the word? Like the snowball effect.
yeah,
Far out.
yeah.
Okay, so then you come back to Perth. Your family by this stage, like your sister, I know was really worried about you, but that I don't know what was happening while you were in Melbourne. What was it like for you to
Mm.
finally get back to Perth? Was your family, your sister, what was it sort of like for them?
It was really hard because the incident that happened like when I was 19 actually really tore my family apart.
Okay.
And my parents ended up separating as well while I was over in Melbourne. So my whole family split apart while I was away.
Mm.
And that wasn't necessarily a bad thing, though. That was a good thing. It needed to happen. But yeah, so when I came back, it was pretty confronting because when I returned, I had to be quarantined for 14 days and I was going through withdrawals. It was
Oh, shit.
it was horrendous. It was horrendous. I think I briefly told you about this story when we were on our podcast together.
Oh, gosh. Can you tell listeners this story? So, withdrawal in quarantine, what is that like physically, emotionally, mentally? You're stuck in a room for 14 days.
Yeah, that was horrific. So I literally jumped on that plane high as a kite and I started to come down probably towards the end of the flight. And while I was in the air, it was that time in Melbourne where they had just started lifting the restrictions. But when they lifted the restrictions, there was like a sudden outbreak. So WA being as hardcore as they were during the time and being really on lock, panicked because they're like, fuck, now we got this plane full of people coming in from Melbourne and there's been this huge outbreak. And
Ah.
so they had all this like border patrol, all the nursing tents set up. Like we all had to be like interrogated as soon as we landed. And mind you, I'm coming down like a motherfucker at this point.
Oh,
So I'm not well. I'm not well. And I look grey. I'm sweating. I'm sweating.
wow.
I'm like, fuck me. Like I just need to lie down like I'm about to cark it, kind of bad way. And so when I got off the plane, everyone was like really honing in on me. And I'm instantly going to paranoia, like, holy fuck, they know I'm on drugs. And then they're like, holy shit, she's got the corona. Like,
Oh,
let's
shit.
quarantine this bitch.
Oh,
Like,
no.
so
Oh,
I had to get like interrogated, I had to do all these tests and stuff, and they're like, nah, you can't go and stay with your mum. Like there's no chance because that did get approved initially, but they're like, nah. So
Mm.
they actually paid for me to stay in a hotel for 14 days, which was such a blessing because I'm so glad I didn't do that with my mum. Like I needed that alone time, to be honest, to gather
Yeah.
myself. And
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been fair to have put my mum through that. And so when I got to the hotel, I was starting to experience drug induced psychosis again.
Oh
And I
God.
started like hallucinating, and I was hearing a lot of like pan flute music and like stuff that I was like, where is this sound coming from? I was like looking in the vents. I'm like opening the balcony door. I'm like, where are these fucking pan flutes? Like losing my
Whoa.
mind over
Yeah.
these pan flutes. And so eventually I was able to get to sleep once the pan flute chaos ended. And after that sleep, I mean, I still felt shit. Like the come down lasts about, well, for me personally, it lasted about 4 days. So
Yeah.
you'd start to feel, I don't know how to even put it. It's worse, way worse than a hangover. It's like you just feel so ill. It's like your whole body just crashes and you're so exhausted. You've been running a million miles a minute, so you can imagine just the type of fatigue that your body
Yeah.
is feeling. And then again, like no dopamine, no serotonin, and you're just immediately in a hole of like severe depression. And so I'm just like trying to deal with reality at that point. And having those 14 days though to just sit with myself was exactly what I needed at that point in time, because as I mentioned before, it was like a good 6 months that I was using straight. And that was the clearest my mind had become in
Mm.
so long. So it was really, I guess, humbling in the way that I had to really sit with myself and I had to realize and reflect on what the fuck actually just happened these last 6 months. Like what
Mm.
just happened? Like that was all, it happened all so fast. It was crazy. I started to grieve over the friendships and the relationships I lost. Um, I actually even recorded some videos in quarantine, which I haven't looked at since because I wanted to kind of document
Whoa.
where I was at and how I was feeling. But all I remember is breaking down a lot
Oh
on
my
those videos,
gosh.
which who knows, maybe I'll share with the world one day, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
so
it's
cool.
yeah, but it was good. It was good because we also had Salvation Army checking in with us like every second day. And there's a lady called Tracy. Shout out to Tracy if you're listening. She is an absolute ledge. She honestly was really helping me just keep sane. And I was opening up to her. I was telling her,
Yeah.
like, what I'd been dealing with. And she was
Yeah.
so kind and
Oh.
so sweet. And so one of the things that really even helped me in quarantine was I started to build a routine for myself again. So I
Yeah.
was like, right, I get breakfast at 8 a.m. So I'm going to get up at 7. I'm going to have a shower. I'll make myself a coffee because I had my own kitchen in there. And then
Mm.
breakfast will come. And then I started working on some writing projects. So I was like, I want to write a novel. Like, I'm going to try and map this out. Let's do some research.
Wow.
And yeah, then I started watching reruns of Frasier.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I just started doing really like normal things that I hadn't done in a long time. And so yeah, that just really grounded me again. And as I said, I would love to say I came out of that and was like, I'll never touch a drug again. But sadly, that wasn't the case. It still took
Mm.
me a little bit longer to fully come out of it. It wasn't until I actually was in quarantine that I decided to even reach out to an AOD, which is an alcohol and other drug counselor. I
Okay.
called them while I was in there and I set it up for when I got out. So that was like the first step for me actually getting proper professional help for it.
Wow. I must be completely ignorant, or maybe it's a misconception or, yeah, a stigma, I suppose. I wonder when you said you were on the plane, you were high as a kite, you'd been using for 6 months. In my mind, I'm like, how on earth did you even get on a plane? How did you make it through the airport? How did people, because in my view, I think you see that person that you explained, you see that person on the street that looks, they've lost their teeth and they're looking like they're wearing, old clothes and maybe they smell or you see that the extreme, 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 and you think, okay, meth, heroin, something's, going on there.
Mm.
Were you like a high functioning user? Like how on earth did you manage to do you know what I'm saying? Like, or am I completely
Yeah.
ignorant? Probably both.
I understand what you're saying. I totally get it, but I would say it's more maybe a lack of education around it, I would say,
Yeah,
because a lot of people, like, addiction doesn't discriminate, it can literally be anyone. So we
yeah,
don't have to be covered in sores or losing teeth or anything like that. You can
yeah.
still keep up your hygiene while being in
Right.
that state. Would I call it high functioning though? I mean, that's a myth that I tend to debunk a lot, in the sense
Yeah,
that we might appear to still be able to, give ourselves proper hygiene and maybe hold down a job, but are we actually being present? Are we actually
yeah,
doing things at the best of our ability? No, we're not.
yeah,
So yeah, it's one of those things where that is very common though, very common. And I used to think the same thing. Like when I was in high school, like I used to think people that were addicts, yeah, were the people that didn't have teeth and lived on the street and just
yeah.
didn't look good. But there's a lot of people that can still like do their makeup and all
Wow.
of that, but it doesn't mean that they're walking through life doing well, you know what I mean? Like when I got through that airport, I was paranoid as fuck. Like I
Yeah.
still had makeup on and I dressed myself and whatnot, and look, I almost missed my flight. I wouldn't say I was earlier on time or had a proper schedule or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Like I almost missed it, but yeah, fuck. That was a very stressful morning. And
Yeah.
but I didn't look like an addict. And that's the thing that I
Yeah.
got a lot. So a lot of people, when they hear my story, often say, "But you don't look like someone who's gone through that or have
Yeah.
dealt with that." And I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't. Like you'd be surprised how many people are even in your neighborhood that are
Yeah.
dealing with this. Like someone who's probably just two doors down, like who are going through the same thing. You just don't know."
Yeah. And it's so nice that you're, like I said, helping to educate and remove the stigma and all of the things because I know myself, I'm so ignorant and I would hate to think that there were signs I was missing if somebody was in pain or needed support. And in the same breath, I've also heard you say you cannot help someone, even if you can see from afar. You actually can't help them really until they want to themselves. So you've almost got to wait for them to have their own rock bottom moment or their own internal, something shifts internally, which I suppose is what happened
Yeah.
to you. And I
Yep.
suppose your sister was sort of there to greet you when you were ready.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing as well is just meet people with compassion. If you see
Mm,
someone who's struggling that, may look like your typical like stereotype addict, just be
mm,
kind to them. I mean,
yeah,
that goes a really long way, because one of the things that addicts struggle with the most is the guilt and the shame. And they
yeah,
just feel like, that they are not worthy of any love or compassion a lot of the time. They just feel
mm.
like they're nothing. So to give a stranger even, some love their way can make a huge difference to their day.
Wow, so true. So it's been 2 years. You had those like since you came out of the quarantine bubble, you started to make moves. It was maybe like two steps forward, one step back, not the linear recovery that,
Yep.
we'd probably love that, Hollywood might represent in the
Yep.
movies. What have been the tools, whether it's little routine, you've mentioned routine practices, like how did you go from no dopamine, no serotonin, suicidal to recovered and 2 years in recovery and 2 years without using?
So I really struggled for a while, like even coming out of quarantine. I ended up staying with my mum for a bit. But I put a lot of my energy into focusing on me and also my relationships. I decided that that was something that I wanted to start healing and moving forward. Like I'd been sitting with a lot of pain for a really long time. And that was one of the realizations I had in quarantine. And I didn't want to keep holding that pain anymore. Like I wanted to start moving through it. So that was one of the first shifts that I made. And I started really focusing on, building a great relationship with my mum, building a great relationship with my sister. And then the next step was also starting to own my shit. Like I really needed to actually face what I had done over those last few years. So finally, having to sit down with my mum and being like, "Mum, like, this is all the crap I got up to. Like, this is everything that I did. And I didn't tell her about the escorting straight away because I was actually very scared to tell her. I was in a lot of shame and guilt about that too. Same to my sister. I didn't tell her straight away. I did hold that one bit about me a bit closer to my chest because I wasn't sure how people were going to react. But after like really focusing on healing myself, healing my relationships, and starting to make those changes. So even though like I was still drinking excessively, this is something that was another issue in itself, and why I didn't probably progress as quickly as I could have. It was because I
Mm.
was still holding on to the belief that alcohol actually wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, the meth was the problem. That was the real issue. Alcohol, like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Everyone drinks alcohol. No worries. That's it's totally normal. Binge drinking on a weekend, normal.
Normal.
So
Isn't that crazy? It actually is normalized. So I can totally
it
see
is.
how in your mind you would be like, this is normal. This is not a problem because, like I just said before, there's such a stigma and like a lack of education around things like heroin and meth, but alcohol, that's accepted. That in fact, in COVID, it was like you can't go to the gym, but you can go to BWS. You can't go to the gym, but you can go to McDonald's and you can go get your pack of durries and exports. That's completely normal. That's
Yeah.
fine. So I can totally understand how in your mind you'd be like, this actually isn't a problem. I live in Australia.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And
Mm.
so, because of that as well, that did slow me down in my progress. But I was starting to see the AOD counselor. I started learning a bit more in regards to looking at different self help books. The Four Agreements
So
really
good.
helped me as
Mm.
well. Yeah, that was a really good way to shift my mindset. And just like really immersing myself with things that I wanted to be like, so listening to podcasts of people that inspire me, and um also like reading books that inspire me. I went through my social media and I culled so much as well. Like, I stopped following any influencers or anything like that. I ended up just finding, people that were like maybe like coaching, or people that were really inspirational to me, that made me feel good
Mm.
and were inspiring to me. And I had to go through my phone as well, get rid of a lot of contacts. I had to cut a lot of people out of my life at that point. Had to recognize who those enablers were too. And then yeah, the routine was a big one though, and that was something that I struggled with a lot of at first because I was still drinking heavily. So it's hard to keep a good routine when you're pretty hungover in the morning and wanting to
Mm.
sleep in most of the day.
Mm. Yep.
And then I ended up taking a spontaneous trip up north on Why Not Bus, one of their tours up to Karajini and back, and
So
that
good.
was really good. That kind of just helped me get out of my mindset at that point in time, because I was still having really negative thoughts. I still had suicidal ideation. I wasn't going to act on it, but I was still thinking about it.
Mm.
But going up north and experiencing the beauty in WA, that really helped me a lot and made me kind of find the beauty in things again as well. And then when I came back, like, I still had a couple of lapses here and there, but they were starting to become further apart. So it would be like once a month, and then maybe once every 2 months. Then it might creep up a little bit again and be once a month again for a little
Yeah.
bit longer, and then it'd start to go again. And then it wasn't until 2 years ago that I had I had a few incidents where I got really, really drunk and I hurt some friends. I started saying really mean things, which is not usually how I am when I'm drunk. I'm not usually aggressive or cruel or anything. I'm usually the happy go lucky drunk. But for some reason at 30 that
Mm.
changed. I became
Mm.
angry and was
Mm.
being mean. And I was really distraught when I found out the things that I'd said to people that I really cared about. And I was like, oh my God, like, I don't even believe that. Like, why would I
Mm.
say these things? And so after that, that was a little bit of a, oh gosh, that's a bit of a wake up call. But then I ended up getting drunk again, like the following weekend. And I ended up lapsing on meth. And I had actually managed at that point in time to have gone, I think I was 8 months or so without it
Wow.
at that point in time. And so when that did happen, I was devastated, really devastated. And I lied to my friends, my partner, who I'm still with now. I, had I was at an event and then I lied about where I was going. I was saying my partner was going to come pick me up, and I went to go find someone who I knew was a user. I went to hang out with them. Somehow they've ended up talking to my partner. They've jerried on that I didn't get picked up
Mm.
by him, and they've all realized I'm not where I said I was. And so that really, really hurt them. I feel a lot of regret still over that situation, and a lot of guilt. Like, it makes me feel terrible even just thinking back on it. But that was my wake up moment for alcohol, because I was like,
Okay.
well, I'm only lapsing when I'm drinking. Like, when I'm
Mm.
getting drunk, that's when my cravings start happening
Yeah.
the most. So, fuck, like, I think I need to actually deal with this. So, I went to AA for 3 months. Wasn't my jam. Didn't resonate with the whole you need to surrender, and you don't have any power over it. And I don't know, I felt the total opposite. I was like, no, I feel like I do have power, and I feel
Mm.
like I can overcome this, and I don't feel like I need to surrender, and that I'll always be an addict. Like, I don't, yeah, it just didn't resonate
Yeah.
with me in that
Yeah.
sense. But yeah, so just moving on, finding smart recovery, which was really, really helpful. That took the pressure off a bit, because it's not abstinence based like NA and AA is. It's very much like, let's focus on the last 7 days, and the 7 days ahead. And we
Yeah.
don't talk about the actual drug of choice. It's like, what did you find hard for yourself like last week, or what was the challenge? And then we just talk about, if I'm dealing with cravings, what are some tools for that? And so
Mm.
learning different tools to deal with cravings, learning different tools to manage my emotions. And then the biggest game changer for me, which might not be a popular opinion, um, unpopular opinion probably, is actually medication really helped me. So I got onto antipsychotics and
Mhm.
antidepressants,
Yeah.
and I honestly felt like I just totally reset. Like, I
Wow.
finally felt inner peace, and I felt
Yeah.
calm in my body. Whereas before it was like running a million miles a minute, even when I
Mm.
wasn't on meth. Like, I was still
Mm.
like on the
Yeah.
inside. Even when I meditated, I couldn't bring that feeling down. And I used to always describe it to my psychologist as electricity just running through me that I just couldn't get rid of. And so finally, like, medication though was what stopped that feeling. And I'd never ever had not felt that feeling in my body. So
Wow.
this was a totally new sense of peace. And
Yeah.
once I started to experience that, that also changed everything. I realized, I don't need to feel that way anymore, that things are actually going to get better, and things were starting to improve, and I was in this beautiful relationship with this wonderful man that I'm with now, and like my relationships were healing, and I was still a little bit lost in finding my own way with what I wanted to do career-wise and whatnot, but I was feeling hopeful again, like, and
Yeah.
that's, yeah, so that's a very long-winded answer, but
Yeah.
that's pretty much what had changed for me over those 2 years.
Wow. And so you mentioned you started to think about your career and hope, and now obviously you're doing so many things. So how do you see yourself now, and what would you sort of define success as these days?
That's a good question. So I define myself now as someone who's very resilient. I do have a lot of strength, and I'm someone who's always willing to learn. I know that I don't know everything either. So even though I've been through a lot, and I've done a lot of studies around alcohol and other drugs now, so I ended up doing that. And I did some units on mental health as well. I still know that there's so much more for me to learn, and that I also learnt that I am like, I'm the creator of my own world. So that was also a really big shift for me as well, is understanding that I create my own world. I can do whatever the hell I want to. Like, if I wanted to up and leave, sell all my shit, and caravan around Australia, I could. Like, I
Yeah.
could. There is nothing stopping me to do that. I could actually go do that. So,
Mm.
really recognizing that too. And then I got some coaches. And I figured out, what am I passionate about? I knew I really wanted to help people. I knew I didn't want other people to suffer the way that I had suffered. And I just was constantly seeing, and I guess it comes from being in that place. But once you've
Mm.
experienced addiction like that, you
Mm.
can see it like that from a mile
Yeah.
away. So anytime I'm out in society, I'm constantly seeing meth addicts. And even though they
Yeah.
might not look like meth addicts to
Yeah.
your general person,
You can see it.
I know. Yeah, I know. And so it's been really alarming actually seeing how many people are dealing with that type of addiction in Western
Mm,
Australia. It's riddled here. And so wanting to help people get out of that and see like me talking with people on the street as well and hearing their stories, and that's just it just fuels my fire even more. So one of the coaches that I had, I originally was like, oh, I'm gonna go do psychology, like I'll become a psychologist, I'll do this, I'll
yeah.
go to uni. And she was like, do you actually want to do that though? And I was like, well, that's how you help people, right? Like that's
Mm.
what you gotta do. Like you gotta go do a psychology degree and do the things. And she was like, can you just actually sit there and just visualize for a moment, like a good 4 or 5 years of you studying and committing to this and attending uni and doing all of that, and then tell me how you feel? And
Yeah.
so I did that, and I was like, ooh, no. I hate that. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So she just said, like, have you thought about even doing a podcast or, becoming a bit of an advocate and talking to people about this? And I was like, I guess that's yeah, there's other ways to help people rather than being a
Yeah.
psychologist. Like I can
Yeah.
definitely be an advocate in this space and get a
Mm.
podcast going. And now like I'm about to launch a new company called Your Recovery, which is a mental well-being and addiction online service to help bridge some of those gaps that I've seen as a consumer, but now also as someone who's been studying and in the field a bit more with it, doing this type of work. So yeah, so now it's life is good. Like
Wow.
I often find a lot of addicts that I talk to who've been in recovery for a really long time, they can just find so much joy in life because they've been in a place where it's been so like you're just merely existing, you're not living.
Mm.
And then to suddenly to come out of it, it's like it's a miracle. It's a miracle.
Yeah.
So you just like cherish everything to yeah, it's just it's weird to explain, but it's like everyone I met in recovery is just like, oh my god, look at this leaf. This leaf is so beautiful. Like you're just like you're like that. Like honestly, it
Yeah.
is. You just cherish everything because it's a miracle. Like you're here.
That is fucking beautiful. And I just, like I said in the beginning, I think so many people have got a story where, they've had some pain, they've transmuted that into purpose. And when I watch what you're doing, I think, thank fuck you did have the strength to pull through, because these people that you're going to help, it probably hits so different when you're not someone sitting in their psychology chair with their nose down their clipboard going, you're like, I know, I've felt it, I've done it. And you're such a beacon of hope for people, which I think is just so fucking cool. So I just wanted to, like, again, I know I've said this, but truly, Paris, like what you're doing is so fucking cool. And I think so many people, myself included, wouldn't have one little clue about what you went through, which is why I really wanted to have you on this podcast. I have a couple rapid fire questions to ask you
Go for it.
really quickly to wrap this up. And we would say one sentence, but we'll see how we can go. So, for you, sobriety in one word.
Bliss.
Oh, I love
Bliss.
it. What grounds you the most now?
Earth.
Mm. Best piece of advice you ever received while you were in recovery?
Probably, yeah, the you are the creator of your own world. That changed things a lot for me to recognize that I don't have to stay where I am. I can change
Mm.
things.
So good. The most misunderstood thing about addiction?
I think it's mainly that people don't understand it can happen to anyone. Like it really is something that people don't get. And yeah, there's a lot of stereotypes around it, and addiction doesn't discriminate, you know?
So true. And a quote or mantra that has kept you going?
Something that I often say to myself at any time of crisis, or I'm just a bit unsure, or I don't know how I'm going to get through, I literally just say, I got this. That's all I say to myself. I'm like, I got this. I got this. I got this.
Uh, and man, you have got some evidence that you can do hard things. I always think that when you meet someone, or when I meet someone who's gone through insane things, like you said, trauma created trauma and then attracted more trauma, and then you've been to the depths of suicidal ideation, you might stumble across a problem in business or tech problems with the podcast. And it's like, I fucking got this. Like, don't underestimate me because of what you've been through. And I think you are the kind of person, it's like, you just watch me. Because if I can beat addiction and if I can beat meth, there's literally business and podcasting for you would be like child's play. So good.
I mean, it definitely helps like when you've been through some stuff because like any of your everyday stuff that happens that stresses out like my partner, I'll be like, get over it.
Please, please. Yeah. Oh, Paris, you're fucking incredible. I love this conversation. Where can people go to connect with you, to listen to your podcast, to find places, resources for support if they need to?
So I've got a website, so you can just go on www.shtsfcked, so shitsfucked.com, and there's a lot of resources on there. It's got all the links to my socials as well. You can email me through the contact form if you want to reach out. But yeah, particularly check out that resource section. I spent a lot of time on it, and there is a huge amount of resources on there for anyone who's either dealing with addiction at the moment or has a loved one that is battling addiction. There's all the
Mm,
kind of help for both parties there.
fucking incredible. We'll put it all in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, Paris.
Thank you. See ya.